Good morning. Welcome to our 8th week of online learning for the 4th quarter. Our topic is human responses to emerging challenges in contemporary societies or social movements. In this lesson, the students are expected to first, define social movement. Second, identify types of social movements. And third is value the importance of social movements. Social movements. It is a conscious, collective, organized attempt to bring about or resist change in the social order by non-institutionalized means. It connects large groups of people that share common interests and goals about society. Certain social movements work to provoke changes in the society. Some, on the other hand, are organized to prevent social change and maintain the status quo. In general, social movements aim to affect the political, social, economic, and environmental aspects of societies. It is important to differentiate between social movements and social movement organizations. When we say social movement organizations are formally established associations arising from a social movement. They pursue specific interests of the social movement, but they are only part of a larger whole, which is the social movement. For example, Kilusang Mayo Uno, a labor union that supports and protects the interests of workers, can only be considered a social movement organization since it is only one component of the entire social movement for workers' rights. Social movement is a process that involves three elements: the individual, the group, and the society. Individuals are aware of their personal qualities, characteristics, and values, enabling them to act according to what they practice or believe in. When they experience any form of a change in the society where they belong to, reactions and responses follow. Then, this individual finds another individual or group that has views and sentiments similar to his or hers. As a result, there is a series of social interactions between the individual and the group, allowing them to collaborate with the same goals and objectives. These goals focus on bringing change for their welfare and for the common good. This process paves the way to the formation of social movements among different societies. The classic categorization of social movements came from the anthropologist David Arberly, 1966, who stated that movements can be categorized according to the number of their participants and the extent of the movement's impact structure. Alternative social movements have limited goals that often relate to specific parts of the structure that the specific individuals would like to alter. This may include social movements advocating for the individual's benefit, such as Alcoholics Anonymous AA, which primarily functions as a support group for recovering alcoholics. Reformative social movement is the opposite of alternative social movements, but the membership of the movement is on a wider scale. Redemptive social movements tend to gather participants from specific sectors of society with the goal of radically changing the status of individual members. Religious groups and cults have such impacts. Revolutionary social movement is when the change that is expected is radical and the beneficiary includes everyone. The Communist Revolutionary Movement in the China, led by Mao Zedong, is an example of this, as it changed the entire social structure of China. Types of social movements. First, First, according to scope, a movement can be either reform or radical. A reform movement advocates changing some norms or laws, while a radical movement is dedicated to changing value systems in some fundamental way. A reform movement might be a trade union seeking to increase workers' rights, while the American Civil Rights Movement was a radical movement. Second is according to change. A movement might seek change that is either innovative or conservative. An innovative movement wants to introduce or change norms and values, while a conservative movement seeks to preserve existing norms and values. The third one is according to targets. Group focus movements focus on influencing groups or society in general. For example, attempting to change the political system from a monarchy to a democracy. An individual focus movement seeks to affect individuals. The fourth one is according to methods of work. Peaceful movements utilize techniques such as nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience. Violent movements resort to violence when seeking social change. The fifth one is according to range. Global movements such as communism in the early 20th century have transnational objectives. Local movements are focused on local or regional objectives such as preserving an historic building or protecting a natural habitat. Levels of social movements. First is local. Local level movements are those actions that push change in a local area. Regional. Regional level movements are social movements that are bigger in area and in scope compared to local movement. National or national level is a bigger in the scope because the movement concerns the whole nation or country and it involves national politics or economy. Global. Global movements concern all people around the world. Their issues are not only contained in local, regional, or national level but on a global scale. Stages of social movement: emerge, coalesce, bureaucratize, success, failure, cooptation or decline, repression, go mainstream. This graph depicts the various stages of social movement can undergo in the course of its development. Stage 1 or emergence. Social movement starts when people realize that there is a specific problem in their society that they want to address. This realization can come from the dissatisfaction people feel or information and knowledge they get about a specific issue. The first stage of the social movement life cycle is known as the emergence or as described by Bloomer, the social ferment stage. De La Porta and Dayani, 2006. Within this stage, social movements are very preliminary and there is little to no organization. Instead, this stage can be thought of as widespread discontent. Potential movements participants may be unhappy with some policy or some social condition, but they have not taken any action in order to redress their grievances. Or if they have, it is most likely individual action rather than collective action. Further, there may be an increase in media coverage of negative conditions or unpopular policies, which contributes to the general sense of discontent. Stage 2 or coalescence. Often social unrest or discontent passes without any organizing or widespread mobilization. For example, people in a community may complain to each other about a general injustice, but they do not come together to act on those complaints. And social movement does not progress to the second stage. Stage 2 is characterized by a more clearly defined sense of discontent. It is no longer just a general sense of unease, but now a sense of what the unease is about and who or what is responsible. This is a stage when the social movement and the issues it focuses on become known to the public. At this stage, a social movement develops its plan of action, recruits members, holds protest marches, forms networks, and gets resources. Most importantly, this is a stage at which the movement becomes more than just random. Discontented individuals, at this point, they are now organized and strategic in their outlook. Stage 3 is bureaucratization. The third stage is known as bureaucratization. This stage, defined by Bloomer as formalization, De La Porta and Dayani, 2006, is characterized by higher levels of organization and coalition-based strategies. In this stage, social movements have had some success in that they have raised awareness to a degree that a coordinated strategy is necessary across all of the social media organizations or SMOs. Similarly, SMOs will come to rely on staff persons with specialized knowledge that can run the day-to-day operations of the organization and carry out movement goals. Social movements in the stage can no longer just rely on mass rallies or inspirational leaders to progress towards their goals and build constituencies. They must rely on trained staff to carry out the functions of organizations. In this phase, their political power is greater than in the previous stages, in that they may have more regular access to political elites. Many social movements fail to bureaucratize in this way and end up fizzling out because it is difficult for members to sustain the emotional excitement necessary and because continued mobilization becomes too demanding for participants. Formalization often means the paid staff can fill in highly enthusiastic volunteers are not readily available. Stage 4 or decline. Finally, the last stage in the social movement life cycle is decline or institutionalization. Decline does not necessarily mean failure for social movements, though instead Miller 1999 argues. There are four ways in which social movements can decline. First, repression. Second, co-optation. Third is success. And the last one is failure. Others have added establishment with mainstream as another way in which they decline. Using a unilinear evolutionary perspective, social movements are believed to follow a transitory process that commences with its emergence as solitary units that soon coalesce to create stronger support systems. This coalition necessitates the bureaucratization of the movement. As the movement fights for its causes, each member experiences five processes. First is success, then failure, cooptation, repression, and going mainstream. Whatever trajectory social movements takes, they all cease to exist after some time. Thank you for listening.